Hello, this is Christophe Clermont from Printess, and I would like to talk in this making of video about the iPhone and iPad sample document that you find on the website as well as in your account under new template. When you open that, you will actually see this template, which looks like this in the buyer side. It's a configurator for all kind of phone cases or iPad cases. It basically features two interesting aspects. One is the selection of layout snippets, which can be done on the left side here, which is actually changing the layout. And then the red frame in that case here indicates what I can edit. So that's a rich text frame. So we can actually put our own text in. And on the right hand side, there's one selector for the model. And interestingly, if I select the iPad, it has a complete different aspect ratio, but the layout completely adjusts to that with our text. So when I go and exchange the layout to something else, which actually will clean everything up and bring it to a new state, in that case, I can change the text here. These are two single line text where I have my own text. So let's just put text in here. And I got an image where I can select or upload my own images. Of course, I can zoom in, and it's a pretty fancy image effect here, as you see. So when I move the image around, it gets colored, and then the effect applies again. When I'm changing back to, for example, the iPhone proportions here, it shows me this nice border of the phone, and it also shows me the same layout in a completely different side with a different aspect ratio. That's because these templates are made with what we call the flex technique. So the frame positionings are more in percent than in actual centimeter or pixel. So let's go and have a look on this template, how it's built. We got two documents here. We got the buyer side document, which actually when we go to the layer, we see the red ones are the layout snippets, which has been placed by basically selecting a snippet. I always can go to the layout snippets and click on remove snippet. So we go back to the empty document, which has only one frame on top, which is the types, which is actually the frame which displays the mobile phone shape. These are coming from the second document in this template, which is the types, which is basically nothing else like a list of pages named via the selection that we offer, which is of course a sample. We know all, we have much more models on the market, but they all could be constructed in the same way. And when I go to that document and I change the background color, for example, to yellow here, we see that this is actually an image placed on each side. And this image is, when we look here, is basically only transparent in the middle. All the rest is opaque. So we got a white opaque image, and this image is placed in exactly the same dimension. So what we did is we went to Illustrator and created frames with exactly the same dimensions. They need to be big enough to occupy the largest device of all. So they have all the same size. If we go back to the buyer side, our main document here, and we select the types, which is actually a link to the subdocument. So this is just a subdocument placed in, it could be flex, fit, or fill mode because it's placed in exactly the same size. So we don't have to stretch it at all. So we have 18 centimeters by 26, which should equal the size of the document. So it's placed identically in the size, but it's also placed with a center pinpoint at 50-50%. So we ensure that no matter what device we have, so when we switch here in the form to iPad, it will always have a center point in the middle. So that's a good thing. That's very important for that magic here to work, because we also have, and this is that field here is basically a document size field. As you might remember, you can actually show document size form field. You have to turn it on in the settings. And if you turn it on, a document size form field appears here. What we done here, we actually had our different list of models. So the 4 models we have, which as a label have the same name like the page names in the types document, which will show the different phone types or iPad in that case. And then we have as a value the width of that devices and the height of that devices in centimeter. So this is a document size form field. Whenever we select it, it automatically changed the document size. So that's what's happening here. When I go from iPad mini to Samsung, it applies the size of the Samsung field to that document, which is exactly 7.5 by 15.99 centimeters. So when we look here, this is what has applied. This is the actual page size, which we see that black frame here. The image has been changed accordingly with the same trick like always. We have a style here, and this style is actually applied to that types frame. So when we select the types frame again, let me just select it via the layer model, we see the style model is assigned to that. And when we go back to the styles, we see that we take the label of the document size as the spread name, which is also it's the page name or spread name of the subdocument. And going back to the form field again shows us that we have iPhone, Samsung, Huawei, and iPad mini, which equals exactly the values of the page names here. So this document size field does two things. It, on one hand, changes the size of the document to the model, and in a second, it changes the selected image from our types document here to the current model of the Huawei. That's all what it does. So that's the whole magic here. The layout is coming from the snippets. So we have the snippets tab. We have one category here, one in the shopping basket of the layout snippets, and we call it designs, and we actually selected the phone category here, and the phone category delivers us all that 5 designs that we can pick from. These are actually maintained in a separate document, which I can open. Comic Monkey, Photo, Punk, and Tropical, that's exactly the motives. And if we look on one of these elements here, they are all defined as layout snippets. They have all the tag currently phone here. So this is a tag that we filter in the end in the phone configurator. And when we go here and we make this white, for example, we see that it automatically extends, which is basically done by the typical mechanisms. So clicking on this frame shows us that this frame is placed in percentage. So I can always toggle here between, for example, centimeter and back to percentage. And we see that this is positioned as left 50% at top, and we got a width here and a height. The width is set in so-called percent unit, which means that the width of this frame is depending on the height. So when I'm changing the height, this frame actually stays in its width, but when the aspect ratio gets smaller, this frame gets smaller as well. So as we see, the entire layout here scales with the height of the document and not so much with the width. The width is basically just extending the background image, which is basically has docking points everywhere and just fills up the page. That is basically all how this is done. If you click on the single frames here, you will definitely see the same logic, but this is why we got the samples here, so we can have a look how they are built. Like for example, we got this here, which is actually docked to the top and had a certain percentage width and height. Again, the width is actually scaling with the height of the document, so that means that percent, and so it will behave pretty good when we change the width, and everything gets a little bit smaller when we change the height here. So it will perfectly adapt to various sizes and various proportions of the iPhone or the Android or the whatever phone you can ever imagine. Yeah, thanks for listening. I hope that was interesting to see how this is built. Please open it up in your account and play around. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.